they're not in status, so they can't get paid, and they can't find another job, and it gets very difficult in those instances in terms of wage loss. Your medical care will still be provided, and that's why I say that, make sure that you get a lawyer and to help you negotiate that, to protect you as best as possible. I could spend 3 hours just talking about that, but I think the most important thing is to seek the help of a attorney to help you understand your rights involving work comp.
And let's talk about that while we're on the subject in terms of, settlement. What type of, settlements do they get into? How do they value, put a value on the claims? How does that work?
One of the biggest issues that my partner and I have, Jonathan and I have, and we spend a lot of time educating our clients. We tell them the most important thing when you get hurt on the job, we want you to get well.
Correct.
Let's try and get you the very best doctors, keep the insurance company honest, keep your employer honest, so if you can't work, they don't force you to go back to work. Make sure they give you transportation, make sure they give you your prescriptions, your physical therapy, everything that you need to get you back to good health. That's the most important thing. We tell them, don't think about trying to resolve your file. Let's get you well. And any lawyer that you talk to, that should be their main goal, is let's get you well. And then we'll talk about if there's a possibility to resolve your file and get you money at
further
the
down
end of
the
the day.
line. Correct.
That's the number one thing. So that's the first thing. In terms of valuing files, the other big thing that, again, I'm going back to the first topic that we talked about, it's different from a car accident. Most of our clients, biggest thing is that they want to get paid for pain and suffering, negligence, all of the above. Particularly if they sustain a significant injury that requires significant operation. Like if you blow a big disc in your back and they got to do major surgery, there's fusion, there's recovery of 4, 5, 6 months, and then at the end of the day, they're like, look, I need to get paid $1 million. And we're like, no, it doesn't work that way. This is workers' compensation. This is not a car accident. Workers' compensation does not provide for pain and suffering or negligence.
It's different.
It's very difficult to sue the employer on what we call tort because they're protected. Now, there are rare instances where you can pierce the immunity that employers have under workers' comp. Those are very, it's very rare. And we could spend another hour on that alone, just understanding how the laws are made to protect the employer carrier from being sued for that big hit that you often hear about when somebody goes to a trial and wins $20 million. A lot of it's based on negligence and pain and suffering and things like that. That doesn't apply here at all under work comp. So I spend a lot of time explaining to our clients that if we are going to settle your file, the components are going to be what is the exposure of the insurance carrier. And their exposure is really future medical expenses and future wage loss. Those are the really two big components that insurance carriers have when valuing a file for settlement purposes. So for example, a person had a major accident that required them to have a knee replacement, and they're 55 years old. Knees normally last, depending on how active you are, anywhere between 15 to 20 years. So if you're 55, they're thinking if you live to be 85, you may need another knee. And they know how much the knee costs. A knee surgery may cost $50,000. And while you're off work, you may be off work for another 6 months. And that may be $25,000 or $30,000. So right there you got $50,000 for the knee, and another $30,000 for being off work to pay you. And that includes the rehab and physical therapy and the prescription drugs. So it's $80,000 is their exposure. That's their exposure.
Oh wow! So this is very different from personal injury.
They see it okay. If we think that there's a good chance that we're gonna have to spend $80,000, we'll give you 50% of that. So they normally like to settle the file at what they believe is their exposure.
Right.
This is not an exact science.
Right?
It's just not. You know. So they do their very best, and so do us. We as counsel for our clients to try and put a valuation on the file as best as we can, and that also involves talking with the doctors, getting what the doctors have said, and again, it's not exact. My crystal ball is not so clear. And then we tell the employee, your case is valued at $80,000. Again, that's if the surgery works well, there's no complications, there's no if, it's good to go. Second knee replacement, they do it, rehab, and you're good to go. And so the insurance company says 50% of that is $40,000. And so that's how they see the file. Because if, for example, this is a Monday, and you had the knee replacement surgery 6 months before, 6 months, and then you say, okay, Frantz, I want to resolve my file. I want to get out of work comp, see how much money you can get me. Again, I'm going back to your question in terms of trying to value settlements. The insurance company, if you die on that Tuesday, we don't want you to die, of course, but you speak to me on a Monday, say, I want to resolve the file. If you die the next day, and it's not related at all to your knee injury, you just die. Unfortunately, you have a coronary attack or something bad occurs. The insurance company pays zero. They're off the hook. So now they went from potentially having exposure of 80 grand to zero. And that's why they're saying, look, we both are taking a chance here that if you live to be 75 and need another knee replacement, that 40 grand wasn't so good that you took 15 years ago. But if
I give you 40,000 and you
die
die
the next
tomorrow,
day, it's not so good for the insurance carrier. And so that's how we try and educate our clients on the idea of how insurance carriers value files. And unfortunately, most of our clients have friends. They listen to radio, and all they talk about is maybe I need to get reimbursed for all the pain and suffering that I've had forever.
Correct.
And so we spend a lot of time initially. Once we get past, let's not talk about settlement. Let's talk about getting you well. And then down the road, we spend a lot of time talking with them about settlement so that they understand what's going on.
And I think for many of them, it's still an issue. They still don't get it because they're still making a comparison between, the workers' comp case versus an accident case. And you're right. A lot of them, they listen to the street lawyers, right? There's always a neighbor, a friend. You understand? That's giving them legal advice. And then so they tend to listen to those people more than they do their own attorneys. Along those lines, I wanted to ask you, does the same apply to, say, if somebody's an independent contractor? Does the rule apply, or is it a separate, something different totally?
Independent contractors, another issue that we have, and mainly we have it with taxi drivers. And truck drivers, where they're not employees of the employer. They have their own cab, they have their own truck, and the employer is not in control of them. And there's a whole list of things, there's like 10, 12 of them that's under the statute that talks about do you fall under the employer-employee relationship, that is if you get hurt, that the employer has to provide you work comp. And I probably get at least, I don't know, 6 calls a year on a truck driver saying, I got hurt and can I get work comp? And I have to explain to them, no, what you have is you're an independent contractor. You're obligated to get your own insurance. And cab drivers, they know that. But oftentimes truck drivers, and sometimes they know, but they're hoping that I'm going to tell them something different. So it's really important that if you're going to be an independent contractor, to get good disability insurance, to get good health insurance, and it may be costly, but you may indeed need it sometime down the road. Going back to sometimes, workers' compensation is the better route to go versus, getting money from a car accident. So, for example, a person is driving their car on 163rd Street. Somebody runs a red light, crushes them. Significant injuries, like $2 million worth of injuries. And that person is driving a car with no insurance.
No insurance. Or a 1020 policy.
Or 10, whatever. Same difference. When you got a $2 million bill, 1020, same difference.
Right.
And I cannot tell you how much my partner Jonathan, who does the personal injuries side of our work, it's amazing. I'd probably tell you for every 10 calls he fields, probably 6 have no insurance.
Yeah.
Or are underinsured.
Right.
And so we talk about it's painful. In that instance, I've got a claim now where I have a client of mine. He was driving his car while at work, so he's an employee under workers' comp. And he's not a truck driver, he's truly an employee. He's going from one place to the next. And he gets in a major accident, devastating. And we're so happy he's alive. It's a miracle. It really is. His bill is probably $2.7 million. Work comp is paid for every single dime.
That's good.
The car who hit him had a $10,000 policy. In that instance, having workers' compensation, again, we don't want the accident, right?
Right.
We don't.
Right.
But life happens, bad occurs, whether you like it or not. Workers' compensation was amazing.
Yeah.
And the sense where he's protected, and he's protected for the rest of his life. There's no caps, there's no nothing.
Oh, there's no caps?
He can get as much care as possible.
Okay.
So if they spend another 2.7, they're paying it. Assuming, of course, the insurance company doesn't go bankrupt, but then the state has a special fund. So in that instance, work comp work perfectly.
Yeah.
And again, we don't want the accident, but that's an instance where it benefited our client from having a workers' compensation coverage and being in an employer-employee relationship.
That's good. My other question for you then is someone able to receive workers' comp and unemployment at the same time? Can they collect unemployment?
Generally, no. If you're in a temporary totally disability status, you cannot secure unemployment benefits and TTD, which means you go see the doctor and the doctor says for now you can't work. You cannot get paid from the insurance carrier for the work comp and also file for unemployment. That's fraud. And we spend time telling our employees, our clients, you can't do that. Now, if the doctor says that you can work light duty and the job can't meet those restrictions, or they've fired you and you filed for unemployment, then you can get both, but it can't be more than you would get if you were getting paid from the workers' comp.
Okay.
So, and work comp then gets to gets to take a offset. So if you should be getting $200 from work comp, and unemployment's giving you $100, then work comp can offset that. And we spend a lot of time educating our clients, because work comp then has a form, a wage form, where they ask you to list all of your wages each month. If you're off work, they ask you to list all other income that you receive outside of comp. And you have to sign it.
You have to be honest about it.
100%. And we spend a lot of time making sure that our clients understand that.
Okay.
And that's a big deal.
How about Social Security benefits?
Social Security benefits, there's two type of benefits. And again, insurance carriers, there are people who are in Social Security retirement. And those benefits, the employer workers' compensation can't offset. But if you are getting disability, workers' compensation can offset some of those monies. And that's why it's important that, you know, again, you find some counsel, somebody who knows what's going on to protect you. And there's some other issues too, in terms of if you're getting Medicaid and insurance, and it's important that you bring all those to the table to talk with your lawyer to make sure that you're not double dipping, and you're being honest. And sometimes you don't even know and think, okay, I'm good, but it's not good. And so you have to make sure that you let your lawyer know. Some people think, well, he didn't ask me or she didn't ask me. No, disclose it. Most lawyers should. But make sure that it's better to give more than less, to make sure that you stay out of harm's way.
You talked about truck drivers prior. Does it make a difference whether or not these work-related incidents happen here in the state of Florida or in a different state?
Okay, there's two things. If you sign the contract here in the state of Florida, and the employer is principally working here, their headquarters is here. So for example, a person is a salesperson, and they travel. If they travel to Georgia, they get hurt in Georgia, but the company's here,
right,
and they signed their employment contract here, Florida law would apply. Okay. And so you can file a claim under Florida because of that. And we oftentimes find that with our clients who are farmers. They migrate workers who go to Georgia, Texas, or Tennessee. Right. And they're, whatever the season is, depending on where they go, we tell them to file their claim here in Florida. And so we do a lot of that.
This is interesting. That's a lot of information that you're providing us. We're very appreciative of it. Do we have any questions?
No.
Anything that we failed to touch on that you probably need to, feel that it's important that that we talk about it?
Yes. Just again, I think it's important that you notify the employer and of the injury. And then when you go see the doctor, you give complete information to the doctor, so nobody could say, well, you sustained a back injury 2 years ago, you didn't notify the doctor.
Correct.
Make sure you notify the doctor. Third thing is when you're applying for a job and you have a question about your health, tell the truth.
Right.
Make sure that you disclose that you sustained a shoulder injury and you hurt yourself, so that they can't say that you didn't disclose information.
Correct.
And that's the most important thing, and particularly our clients who do not read well or write well,
and somebody else is doing the translation,
make
or what
sure
have you,
that
make sure they read it back to you.
yes. So if you have a relative or somebody who speaks English well, make sure they complete the application as accurate as possible,
Right.
particularly involving your prior medical history. So if you do get hurt on the job, they can't say you didn't disclose it prior.
That's right, because that's reason for them to deny.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, and there's a whole area of law that talks about that you misrepresented. And so that's one of the biggest things, is not telling the doctors of your prior problems, injuries, and medical questionnaires. And that's why I'm so big on making sure that you get an interpreter,
Right.
who can help you.
Right.
And a lot of our clients, you know, again, some can't read and write, and that's okay. And that's okay, and that's why we can give you help. And
that's why I translate it to them, and I tell them.
And
that,
don't be embarrassed if you can't read and write. It's okay.
Right.
You're honest. You're working hard. We respect you all day long.
That's right.
So
I
protect
think you have
yourself.
a question. Go ahead.
Ok. Si yon moun tombe nan travay li, travay la foye l, kote yon dokter, le rive dokter di li ok, apre 27 jou di li kal travay. Men li senti li va kal travay. Dokter balon papye, li til tourne travay li ok. Li til pa kal travay. Ki sa li fe?
Did you understand that?
Yes, sure. So so the question is that employee gets hurt on the job after a period of time that the doctor tells the employer 2 or 3 weeks you're good to go back to work. The employee believes that he or she is not able to go back to work. What do they do? Again, this is one of the constraints of workers' compensation. That doctor pretty much is dictating your work status. If you do not like that doctor, you have a one-time change through the life of your claim to ask for another doctor. But guess what?
Probably gonna say
They pick the doctor.
right.
The insurance carrier picks the doctor. You then go to that doctor and to see if that doctor will evaluate you the same way. And if that doctor says you can go back to work again, full duty work, then you got a last resort, which you can ask for independent medical evaluation. And where we pick the doctor, but we have to pay for it. The claimant has to pay for that evaluation, and they go for about $1,000 to $2,000. And then if that doctor that you select says no, you can't go back to work, and then if I file a claim and say and state that the IME doctor, the independent medical evaluation doctor, says that my client can't go back to work, and then there's a conflict, I file a claim, the judge says, okay, I'm going to pick yet another doctor to break the tie.
Ok. Li te pren yon lot dokter. Dokter di l men bagay la. Li kite dokter travay la, si yon se deba li ala ka dokter en privé, li peye kob. Le ou fè amaray pou li gen problem nan bak li. Dokter di li baka travay, dokter sa di li baka travay, dokter privé ya. Ki sa pou fè?
Ok, so sa Frantz di, eske doktor privé sa se avokal la te pran, ou bien sa e li menm kale yon? Do you understand?
Sure.
Because you understand what she's saying? She went to her own private doctor.
I do. Again, this is the question is for our English-speaking audience is that if the person goes to their private doctor and that doctor says that I did an MRI and you shouldn't be going back to work. Again, the avenue for the injured employee is for us to do the independent medical evaluation, the IME, under the work comp statute. I notify the insurance carrier within 15 days that we're availing ourselves of the IME, and then we do the MRI, and then we go to court, and then the judge will then say, okay, the insurance company has their doctor that says one thing, your IME says another thing, the judge then selects an expert medical advisor, and then that person then will evaluate the client, review all of the records from everybody, and then make a evaluation that he or she will provide to the judge, and the judge, for the most part, will go with whatever that expert medical advisor has said is the bottom line.
Okay.
But going to your own private doctor, that's
Doesn't work.
a non-starter. That
Okay.
won't work.
Okay.
Period.
Okay.
And frankly, if you go to your private health provider and if you fill out the medical questionnaire complete, they probably won't see you, because if you tell them that it occurred from an on-the-job injury, because they're afraid that your private health plan won't pay them.
Right. That's true. All right. Well, Frantz, I think that you have answered all my questions and all the concerns. I think you've shared a lot. Any final words? What's the last word that you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think the most important thing is to make sure that you give complete information throughout the entire process, and do not be afraid of telling your employer you sustained a work injury.
That's important.
And it's important. And employees should respect employees who get hurt on the job.
I agree.
All right, and make sure that this is not a car accident. There's two different things.
Yes.
It's work
Don't
comp.
compare the two.
That's right.
Yes. We want to say thank you to our friend and colleague, for being here, answering all our questions regarding workers' comp. Nous apprécions tout le monde qui était branché. Nous remercions vous. Nous bon rendez-vous l'autre lundi, si Dieu veut, à même heure. You wanted to add something?
Yes, and I'm saying to you, don't need to call me or my partner Jonathan, but you should seek counsel. I think all of the law firms out there will meet with you free of charge.
Right.
Get counsel so you at least know what your rights are and where you stand.
I agree.
And if somebody's gonna tell you that, they're gonna charge you $250 for a consult fee, wrong guy or wrong gal. There's plenty of good lawyers out there that want to educate potential clients, and so seek counsel. And that's what I gotta say.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Beatrice. It's great to see you.
Thank you for coming. Likewise.
Thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. I want to thank our partners, of course, the Haitian Lawyers Association, Law Offices of Kazan Associates, One Show Pam, Télé Pam, Manger Pam, Tout Pam yo. Nous disons merci, nous disons nous brancher encore avec nous pour un autre segment de Info Légale, l'autre lundi si Dieu veut, à 5h, sous même, sous même Facebook page là. Nous voulons faire connaître que if you haven't already, like our page on Facebook, c'est Kozelegal. Nous sur Instagram, follow us, et puis nous avons YouTube page nous encore, Kozelegal, Casual Law Firm. Merci et à la prochaine.